Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Sunday to you. Close the door here. What's happening? How's everybody doing out there? Oh, I can see you. There's Ben Coombs. He says, by the way, thanks again all that have subscribed to me when Pete gives me a shout out. Ben is my faithful moderator. He's always here, and he's got his own live stream that he does in the evenings on Sundays. So thanks, Ben, for being here again, always. And let's see here. Music Therapy Lass has just watched Tim Pierce's video about John Shank's studio rig. That's cool. I haven't seen that yet. I saw that John has a video out with Gibson on his guitar collection. So I want to check that out. John's rig, he was by Dave Friedmans, and I was in there recently. His live rig is pretty fascinating. He's got a whole amp switcher set up with different amplifiers, and then a rack that has a mic pre in it, Landau style, and his cab gets mic'd with the mic pre. Then that signal gets sent to a mixer, and then the mixer goes out to some effects, and it's a wet kind of situation, but all the effects happen after the microphone. And then a stereo feed goes out to the front of house. So he's kind of pre-mixing his entire, effects chain and everything, but the effects aren't in an effects loop or anything like that of his amplifier. It's all the wet stuff comes post. And I actually got to hear it in action, kind of with a dry cab in the other room. They were testing it with a mic on it, little 112 they used that day, and then a powered monitor in the room beside the rack while they were dialing in some sounds and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. It works great. And what I actually took away from it is, like, I could actually easily do that with a PT15 by taking the impulse response output and running it through something like the Wetter box or something like that, and like a little mixer. John's got a rack mixer. It's an Ashley, I think, in his rack, and that lets him mix various effects. But with something like the Wetter box, I could do at least 2 effects and just have everything pedal board based and do all my time based effects post mic, post IR, DI output. And it would probably actually be really cool. So it's something I know I actually want to try for the future, because his rig sounded really great. I mean, it's kind of there's a lot to be said for just doing it simple too, and putting the effects in the loop and the amp and all that. But there is something to be said also for keeping your dry signal dry and all that good stuff. So, and I like the concept of just giving the front of house a stereo line out, and there's your sound. And, somebody's up there in the top chat thingamajig. It's More Guitars. He says, thanks for joining us and spreading the love and tone. Loved your last vlog. Thanks, man. I look forward to your vids during the week. Yeah, I'll be working on. I've got some great stuff coming up. I got an Amps in the Zone one with a very special amplifier. I don't want to tell you what it is yet because I want it to be a surprise. But it's going to be cool, really cool. And it's I feel really lucky. I got approval to do it this week, and it's just going to be really neat, I think. So I'm going to do that. And I've got this video that I did with Bob Clearmountain that I need to edit and just finish and put out. But it's really interesting where we went by his studio. And this is going on 5-6 months ago almost now. And so I've really got to get dedicated to get that done over the next week or 2 here and get it out. It's on this hard drive that I have right here. And anyways, I went by his place and we mixed a song of mine. And there's some stuff in there about mixing and how he approaches things. And I learned a lot that day. And you get to see him in action, kind of doing some things and explaining some really, really cool approaches to things that I'd never really thought about before. He's got a great plugin out called Clearmountain's Domain. And that's featured in there as well. But his plugin basically recreates his really interesting signal flow path that he uses in the studio to add reverbs and delays and things like that to everything, vocals and guitars and everything, and have it sound really wet without sounding muddy. So it's really cool. So I got to get that video out. So there'll be some interesting ones coming, as of course, as well as the gear videos and stuff that I have. Generally speaking. So lots of those to do too. Hey Pete, what's the best, easiest way to use reverb with an amp with no effects loop? And that's Joey up there in the top chat. Thank you guys for doing that. And thanks again to Marr Guitars for doing that. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much, you guys. Yeah. So what was the question? Let's see. I forget already. With my consider the age getting up there. Hey Pete, what's the best, easiest way to use reverb with an amp with no effects loop? Well, if it's a clean amp, it sounds great going into the front, even up to moderately like edgy. You can just use. There's a number of different reverb pedals. A great one, for example, is this one. Like how I just had that right there. This is a great reverb pedal. This is George Tripp's designed the MXR Reverb. Couldn't be a simpler name to remember, but George designed this, and with the mix knob on it, it's really, really easy to dial in. That's this control right here, this blend knob, and he is a great, he just knows how to dial in effects, how to design them, how to dial them in. And one of the things with a mix knob on both a delay and a reverb is that you can have the taper come on really slow if the pedal is primarily going to be designed to be used in front of an amp. And I think he considers that probably most people are using things in front of amps these days. So the blend knob's very forgiving. And even in front of an amp with a little bit of edge or drive going on, you're going to be able to turn that up and get a reasonable sound. So this is a nice one to consider in front of an amp. But the only other way to do it, easiest way, there's a number of different ways you can do it. Like what I just described with the Shanks thing is miking it and then running that signal through, but that's kind of complicated. I wouldn't say that's the easiest way. Maybe it's the best way, where you mic the amplifier, run it into a mixer, use a powered speaker and all that stuff for the, but might not be the best for some people. Scott Henderson, as well as Landau, have a really unique, cool thing that they do, and it always sounds great, where they've got their amplifier head, speaker cabinet, and they take a tap off the output of the amplifier, right? So you got your speaker cable running out of the head into the cabinet, right? So you take that cable and you plug it into like the Sir line out box. That's what they use. And that takes a tap off the signal, sends the signal through to the cabinet, but then gives you a line level out. No. They'll run that out to their effects. And then they'll run the effects into a second amplifier right into the front end. So when you see Landau using a Super Reverb live, that's what he's using the Super for, is the effects. And sometimes he uses his little signature Fender amp for that. Scott Henderson, he's got a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe or something that he does it with. You'll see a Sir head, 412 cabinet, and then a little combo sitting beside it. The combo has the reverb and delay in it only. So I hope that makes sense. Speaker out of the head into the line out box. There's a through going through to the cabinet. Passes the signal through to so your dry sound, nothing but dry sound in the cabinet. But that little line out box takes a tap off that speaker level out, that line level, run it into your effects. Run the output of those effects into a second amplifier right into the front end. I wouldn't have thought it would work. And then of course you see those guys do it and it sounds unbelievable. And then it kind of makes sense to me because Scott likes that he can plug into, you can use a little combo amp that's basically clean. And then you get the EQ on the amp. So you can kind of EQ your effects. And effects run into a clean amp once again. There's this vibe to them because the preamp of the amplifier adds its own color and compression and maybe a little bit of drive, makes the effects blow up a little bit because they're compressing the sound and stuff. You never know until you try it, but it's a great sound. It's a really, really cool sound. And the neat thing, and what you'll probably find, is that Scott is a big advocate of this. I think I had a great talk with Scott the other day, actually, on the phone. But we talked about all kinds of stuff. He's such a fun guy to talk tone with, and he's still so into it, and he just loves it. But anyways, the thing is that the dry sound in that cabinet, being dry, you're keeping your dry signal intact. He feels like the guitar responds better to things like feedback and not having the effects in the same speakers as the dry sound. Keeps that tone pure between the guitar, the feedback loop pure between the guitar and the amplifier and stuff. And I know he really likes that. So, and all that is kind of detailed in the Tim and Pete video that we did on Scott's rig. If you want to check it out sometime, it's really cool. And he shows us how it all works. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Just go a little bit further back in the chat from the bottom here. Lauren says that he got that MXR reverb when he saw Laurie Basilio on Tim and Pete's guitar show. Laurie's the one that actually turned me on to it too. So that's funny. Because I saw Laurie playing it in maybe an Instagram video or something, and I was like, "Whoa, that reverb sounds amazing." And so I got one, and I was like, "Yep, it's awesome." And so I've had it on my board for a while. I took it off my board because I wasn't really using it for the songs in the Classic Rock Show set, and I put an Echoplex preamp in its place, the Clinch EP pre, because I was using that for to play Eruption and stuff with the Classic Rock Show. I wanted that preamp to hit the front end of the amp, so I needed the loop every now and then. I got to pull something off to make room, but it's a great reverb pedal. Probably put it back on for other things, Robert's Guitar Dungeon. What's up, man? How are you? Everybody, Robert's Guitar Dungeon was on last week, and I thought he said something mean, but he didn't. It was a imposter. So he's a good guy, and it's not his fault. It was some jerk so everybody go subscribe to Robert's Guitar Dungeon that hasn't, because he's a stand-up dude, and he's been having issues with people impersonating him, and I can't imagine how shitty that is. I hope it doesn't happen to me at some point. Having to chase people down that are impersonating you and causing problems on YouTube and stuff, it's not cool. But anyways, Roger is asking, what is my tour rig? In my recent video from over in the UK, your sound at the live show you featured was monstrous. Thanks, man. It's the PT15 with a 212 PT100 cabinet. I would have used the PT15 cab, but we had it. Sir had in stock over there with the rep there, a 212 the cab from the 100. So that's what I ended up using, and it sounds great too. And then my main pedal board and stuff. But what you're hearing in that video is mainly, actually, in both the songs from the recent video, it's the clean channel, and I'm hitting it with pedals for, I think the songs in the video are the end, Golden Slumbers, that whole, there's segments of that. And yeah, so I'm using the clean channel, maybe with the Unit 67 in front, I think, or maybe the yeah, I was using the Unit 67 for part of it, as well as the Wampler Mini Ego Comp. So at some points, actually, both those are on, just with really light compression on each of them, a little bit of boost. And then I'm using the Bogner Blue as well into my clean channel on the PT15. So that's what you're hearing. And there's a fair amount of drive going on, because it's, but that's my kind of classic, early 70s to mid 70s drive. I get out of a couple pedals and stuff going into the clean channel. And then for that gig into the later 70s into the 80s, I hit channel 2 and go for more of the JCM 800 modded sort of thing. Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad you like the tone. It's literally me throwing the iPhone on top of the amp. I think I stuck it up against something in order to just, capture a little bit of video. And I thought it sounded really good too. I just missed somebody in the top chat there. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to go find you. But yeah, I was surprised how well phones capture the sound these days. Is pretty cool. Ian Ferguson was up there in that top chat, and he said, "Have you heard of the string theory effect, Sea of Tranquility fuzz?" I have, actually, but I haven't tried it. That's one I have heard of and haven't got a chance to try. I would like to. Is it cool? I'd like to check it out. Definitely. Okay, what else we got here? Do you think we get too obsessed with stuff and gear and lose focus on sound, says Jason Carter. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to wring whatever you can out of what you've got. I've written a couple premier guitar articles on that, even, on how, hold on a second, while we're talking about gear and all this, it's you know, that's the whole tone is in the hands thing. But also I can remember times in my life, I've told the story on here before, but I remember, like, for instance, when I went into audition for Don Henley, originally in 2000, when he brought out the Inside Job album, we went into audition. I was young. I was 27 or 28. And my friend Will Hollis went in as well on keys. And I had a very simple rig. I had a DSL 100, which wasn't very, or DSL 50 Marshall, which wasn't very Henley appropriate. He even said, I remember in the audition, he goes, "You got any Fender amps?" I remember that. But I used the Marshall, and it sounded fine, mainly on the clean channel with pedals and stuff, I think. But anyway, my friend Will, who ended up getting the gig back then in 2000, who I recommended for it, and he then became the Eagles musical director. So we always joke he still owes me sushi. But my point, Will ended up going in with a rack, a little like he had like a 6-bass rack with, you know, his keyboard modules and stuff, synth modules and whatever he had, you know, and a controller. And then the guy that was in auditioning, there was other people in auditioning, had like refrigerator racks. I remember because their gear was still in there. There had been another group in the day before us, some really credible players, Greg Bissonette on drums and all kinds of people. So we walked in and it was like, you know, we were these kids by comparison to the sort of, you know, our elders that were like better, you know, or more experienced. I don't want to say better, but they're pretty, I mean, these are like great players, but, you know, more experience, that's for sure. But Will got the gig. And I always remember him going in and bringing that little rack, you know, and thinking he's bringing every ounce of whatever he can out of that stuff. He doesn't need the refrigerator rack necessarily. He ends up getting the gig with, you know, what looked like 1/6 of the gear of some of the other people that were auditioning for it. And this is coming out of the 90s and the 80s where it's still racks and, you know, keyboard players had every sampler and sound under the sun. These days it's probably on a laptop or something, or they're using main stage or something, you know. But anyways, I always remember that. And I had a little rig too when I used to, you know, use what I had. I remember I had a Rocktron Replifex for my kind of, you know, it was in the loop of my amp. And then I had 6 pedals in front, and that's all I had. And I could get a lot of sounds out of that little rig, you know, a lot of sounds, and really good sounds. And, you know, when you work hard with what you've got, it's like an Axe-Fx, you know. It's like people get it, you know, sometimes sell them and stuff. But let's be frank, like the Axe-Fx 3, you know, I'm looking at it right here, or the Helix, you know, if you spend enough time with them and you really get deep into it, and that's your thing. I mean, it's the props I always give to the Axe-Fx. It's a really heady device, and it's kind of deep, and that can turn some people off, I think. But the reality is, my experience with it is actually, if the more time you spend with it, even say you're just using it for effects, like Steve Vai style, with an amp. The more time you spend with it, the better the sounds get. The more you get into it and really, you can tweak this and that and that. So if you are able to hang, it's a really deep device. And I think that goes for just about any. The more time you spend with whatever you've got and really get inside it and discover to use it, it'll, you know. Anyways, Blue House Music is in the top chat thingy up there, and he says, "We really enjoyed your vlog 3, the classic rock show. Is Biddy B your girlfriend?" Yes, that's right. Yeah, she's a drummer and guitar player, and she's in the end of the video. You can see her play drums at the Cavern Club in lovely Liverpool. She had a lot of fun that night. Band got her up to sit in, and she played. Saw her standing there, which was pretty cool. You have a Johnny Marr thing happening today, says Troy McLean. I do a little bit. I watched a great Johnny Marr video yesterday. That dude is such a great guitar player. Man, I love how he plays guitar, honestly. I could just kind of listen to him I mean, his parts and the way you probably hear some of him in my clean playing like these days, because I just really enjoy the way that he comes up with unique, beautiful guitar tones. And, you know, I don't know, he's a great guitar player, I think. One of those ones I came late to the party to appreciate, and now I'm just like all about it. Like, this really classy guitar playing, you know, incredible tones. And I saw a video of him on Instagram yesterday on one of those sort of guitar, wasn't on Johnny Marr's thing. It was on like a guitar Instagram site where they just repost things, you know, and they put up a Johnny Marr video, and it was amazing. I thought it was great. And yeah, I have a little bit of that haircut going on. When I went to England, I was like, come on, I'm of British heritage, Scottish. I've got to get a little bit of this hair going on. I can still do it. I can still pull it off. Now I'm just growing it out. I want to look like Ronnie Wood or Jeff Beck. Yeah. Okay. Darren says, massive thanks from Wales for giving up your time to help us through these tough times. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It helps me too. I got to be here and hang. I need the social interaction with you folks. Pete, compressor and or beginning of chain, says Charlie. Generally speaking, always at the beginning. Generally speaking. People used to use them in racks, you know, like the DBXs and stuff in loops. There's nothing wrong with doing it. You know, for instance, sometimes I'll do it. You say at the beginning or end of chain. Well, if it's a guitar amp and I'm playing live or whatever, it's going to be at the beginning. But I do often love the sound of like an 1176 or an LA2A on a clean sound, post everything. I mean, like even after delay and everything, it kind of glues the whole sound together, and you can just put it on a track. Like if you've recorded a track, sometimes I'll put it on the input in Logic, with the UA, actually not in Logic, but in UA console before it hits Logic. You know, a compressor across. Like if I'm playing a clean part, give you an example, like probably when I was recording Promise or something like that from my Guitar Nerd album, or maybe the song Remember, the intro of Remember, if you've ever listened to that, I probably used a compressor on the input, like post everything, just to even out. Now I'm talking, I'll set it for like 2-3 dB of gain reduction. That's just a little bit. You know, so you're not boosting too much noise from the guitar and stuff like that, but just a little bit of an evener like going in can be a good thing. And even just running through, you know, I should experiment a little bit more. Like I have an 1176 here in my rack. Maybe I'd try that today. Just try plugging through the 1176 and like the output, for instance, of my Marris pre, where I've actually got my PT15 IR output running into my Marris mic pre, just as like a line level pre, you know, and then that goes straight into my Apollo. But I could easily just patch in using my patch bay into my 1176 here and try that for the kind of the Van Halen thing. I mean, I think they used a 1176 inline on most of his stuff, you know. You know, whether or not you're compressing with it at all is another thing, but even just running through it, it's got transformers and stuff in it. It might add something. Yeah. Peter says hi from Oregon. Hope we're all safe. I agree. Hope all you guys are safe out there and you guys are doing good. Yeah. Music Therapy Laz says, do you use an amp switcher like the Amp Pete? I do. I have an Amp Pete in the rack right up there. So that's how I switch all these amps. Because I've got 8 amps hooked up to the Amp Pete and 3 speaker outputs. One's going to the Sur reactive load, one's going to the aux, and one's going out to my cab in the other room. Yep. Let's see. Thinking of getting an HX Stomp, somebody asks here. Nat Brajo, does it play nice with pedals? It's an interesting question. I screwed up last week because I forgot that the HX Stomp actually has a loop on it. And somebody said in the comments on last week's video, great, or always enjoy the video or something like that, but I wish there wasn't so much disinformation on the HX Stomp. And I felt really bad. But, you know, the reality is I don't know everything and I make mistakes like anybody. I forget things. I get a lot of questions about guitar stuff, and it's like, which overdrive would be best for my rig, this pedal or that pedal? And many times it's like, I haven't tried either of those, and I don't know. Like, you know, I do the best I can. I try a lot of stuff, but I don't have like, you know, it's, you could test me on stuff, and you'd probably be amazed at what I don't know. So it's hard because you can't keep up on everything. You can't know, you know. And so I just forgot that the thing with my HX Stomp, I've used it direct in quite a bit actually. And Bitty B, she has one over in her drum studio not far from here, and she uses it to record. So I've used hers in there for recording bass and guitar, and then I've used mine live mainly so far as a backup. So I've got it set up on the floor. If you look at my live rig shots from any of the last tour, I had it plugged in every day, but I forgot there was a loop on the side, you know. Sorry. Matthew's up there in the top chat, and he says, hey, Pete, any tips on getting a good acoustic guitar sound live, especially dealing with different sound guys at different shows? Well, it all starts with the guitar and the pickup. And he says, thanks so much for all the weekly insight. Thanks, Matthew. The guitar and the pickup is key. So finding a guitar and a pickup that you bond with is number one, and getting a sound together that way. So giving them something great to work with. Probably my favorite, most natural sounding guitar, I guess, that I have is my Martin that I put a LR Bags pickup system in. I always forget. Here's one of those things I'm going to forget, but it's the Anthem or Element. I can't remember. One of them's a preamp and one of them's a pickup. I think the Element is the pickup and the Anthem system is the preamp. But anyway, if you look at LR Bags site, it's hard to go wrong with their stuff. Basically what it is it's an undersaddle pickup, and it's a mic-like thing that you mount somewhere in the guitar. And then there's a blend knob to go between the pickup and the mic-like thing. And then there's a volume knob. And that's all you get. It's very basic. And I think it sounds great. So I put that on my Martin. It was a step up from what I had in there before. And it sounds really good. So I recommend that. I also like the sound of this Takamine guitar that I have. It's quite good too. Now, having said all that, once I tried using an impulse response of an acoustic guitar live and blending it into the pickup sound, that was a big thing too, which is kind of what Fishman does with their Aura system. It's IRs of real guitars. So experimenting with that can be an interesting thing too. You can easily do that in something like a Helix that's got an IR loader in it. Run your guitar in, load the acoustic IR into the Helix, and then run through it. You can blend in the IR at any level that you want, which is pretty cool. And then add a little compression and EQ. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just getting that sound really together, like maybe in your own studio and stuff. I'm just going to grab another top chat here, and then maybe I'll come back to this topic, because Wyatt Willis is up in the top chat, and it's going to run out here. He says, Pete, if you could only have one good 1176 type comp or a 1073 mic pre, only have one, a good 1176 type compressor or a 1073 mic pre a la BIE Steve Stevens, I would have the mic pre. If I could have a good outboard mic pre or good compressor, the mic pre would be the first thing I'd get, because I feel like 1176 kind of stuff you can almost nail, arguably, in the box these days with plugins. But a good mic pre, getting a great signal into your system is a great thing. So at least having one 1073 around is a really cool thing, or an API. Great to have an API or a Neve style. The API is a little bit punchier, more aggressive. The Neve is a little fatter, thicker. Just depends what you want. Right now, I actually use the Neve. I've got the BAE 1073 Steve Stevens, exactly, with the Steve Stevens mod, which means it's got two mic pre's in it, and then it's got a summed output. So you can come right out of that output and go straight in. You hear that a lot in my recordings, where it's like I'm summing a 57 and a ribbon mic to one track. And anyways, having a good mic pre is the more important thing, I would say. It's nice having an outboard compressor, but I use the mic pre's every day. And like I said, I've got an 1176 sitting here, and I barely ever use it, to be honest. Not that it's not great, it is, but I do most of my compression and all that stuff after the fact in the box. I don't do a lot of that stuff. You know, it's a funny thing. It's like with things like EQ and compression, when you're recording yourself, when you're engineering yourself, it can be hard sometimes to have a handle on that stuff, I feel like, when you're recording. It's better to do it in the mix, I feel like, because when you're laying stuff down and you're your own engineer and you're moving fast and trying to get things done, it's like something like compression. Having said what I said a little bit earlier about clean sounds, like sometimes I'll use one on the input to just get a little bit of a, you know, leveling effect going in when I'm doing something like the song Remember or Promise or something like that. I'll like a little compression on a sound like that. But it's easy to overdo it if you're not really paying attention, and then you're stuck with all that compression on the sound recorded. Better to maybe wait till the mix to do like that, you know, some more heavy compression or things like that, when you can really focus and listen on headphones, multiple sources, not when you're like trying to compose and come up with a cool part and get a good take all at the same time. For instance, I sort of regret actually one of the things recently, like on Holly Henderson's record, like the sound going in for vocal, I maybe bungled it a little bit. I feel like it's not bad, but I could have done a better job here and there. There was a little bit too much drive and compression on the vocals at certain points for the vibe, I feel like. And so those are things you learn new things with every project that you do, but just getting a great, clean, undistorted sound into the DAW or whatever, and then treating it later when you is maybe for some, if you're a really experienced engineer, it's a different thing, but I'm not friggin' Mike Klink or something, or somebody that, or somebody, I'm at best I'm a decent engineer, but I'm not some, like, what I'm getting at. It becomes easy to still make mistakes. So that's a really long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, 1073, get a good mic pre first and worry about getting that great signal in, and then you can do the compression and stuff after the fact in the box. So a little more about the acoustic thing. Part of the problem too live is, like, if you can use something, I mean, I find like something like the Helix is great because you can run into it, you can add an IR to the sound, which is incredible, by the way. I mean, I remember using those free IRs. I've mentioned it before, but I found some free ones online of a Taylor guitar, Taylor 314, I think, and a guy had done like a Neumann and a Sheps mic and all these different mics and made impulse responses of the acoustic guitar. And adding the Sheps mic was the one that I liked to my Takamine, building a preset in the Helix. And then I have a recording of it somewhere, like a little MP3, where I compared the pickup just dry of the Takamine guitar and then adding the IR to it. And it's pretty amazing how real it sounds and mic'd all of a sudden when you add the IR. And it was just a really successful experiment, I thought. So then you can add a little EQ after the IR, like in the Helix, EQ the sound a bit, maybe a little bit of compression before or after, whatever you hear. And then, you've got that, right? And you can even add a little stereo room verb, maybe like a tight room or something like that, to get a little bit of air, especially if you're using in-ears. It's a nice thing. Not to mention things like a boost, if you need a little bit, like a two sounds that are like, you can simply have one 3 dB louder than the other one if you're playing a little part that you want to stand out. So using something like a Helix or something can be really, really great, I think, for acoustic guitar player. They're more than just a box for electric guitar and stuff. They could be almost as valuable for an acoustic guitarist, I would think, to set up some sounds. Moving down. Joe Jr. says, is that called a WetDry rig? I think you're talking about the rigs I was talking about earlier. Folks like John Shanks and Landau, and yes, that's a WetDry, where you run the wet signal into a different amplifier, or maybe by using a mic to mic your dry sound and then run into a mixer and some effects, and then you've got the whole thing. You got the dry sound and then the wet sound. You can send out a stereo mix to the front of house. That type of rig is just a different type of WetDry or WetDry wet rig. That's what people are referring to when they're talking about that stuff. There's yet the third way to do it, the WetDry rig, which is the way I used to do it. And it's kind of the Steve Stevens method, as well as Eddie Van Halen, where you've got your head cabinet, tap off the speaker output going to that dry cab, and you run into your effects. Maybe say like Eddie uses SE3000 or whatever stereo delays, two of them, one set to 250 and one set to 500, I think, milliseconds. And then you run that into a separate like H&H power amp or whatever and go to two more cabinets. And you can, if you've got a mixer and you're doing it, you can mix some dry sound into those cabs too. Now you've got stereo delays in the outside cabs, a little bit of dry sound, and then dry sound up the middle in your dry cab. So that's a third way to do wet, dry, wet. And that's the only way that I've ever done it in a rig that I've had. Rico USA is up in the top chat thing. Thanks, man. The super chat. He says, loved your vlog on your Euro tour. I loved your comment where you were hopeful that when we come out of the shutdown, that the world will come to appreciate the simple pleasure and joy of live music even more. Yeah, it's going to be great when you think about it. I mean, that's a positive. We're all going to be starved for tours and music and to go out and hang. I mean, man, even just to go to your local restaurant, right? Or local bar and have a beer. Everybody's going to be stoked to do that stuff, let alone, going out and going to see a great show again and stuff. It's going to be awesome, So, yeah, that time will come. It's just a matter of time. And in the meantime, everybody stay safe and healthy and work on guitars. I mean, practicing on guitar, or change all your strings if you have lots of guitars. There's things that can be done during these times. Yeah. Ben Coombs says, Pete Thorn, you need to get caught up on your email. Just saying. I know, I really do. I've been lax. The email, oh, God. Okay. Later today, I will, I promise. Yeah, I'm the worst with it sometimes. Sometimes I just don't want to answer email and deal with real life. I just want to turn on my guitar rig and play, or write a song, or get lost in a track. And it's hard sometimes, man. I mean, everybody deals with it out there. You won't balance reality with the wanting to, but it's hard, man, being like your own, like, I'm not the most organized guy. So if you're not an organized guy, it's like, I'm going to put a half an hour into this. The other day, I've got a storage room, and I said, I'm going to set my alarm on my phone for 1 hour from now, and I'm going to clean up this damn storage room because it was a disaster. And the alarm came, and I was almost done, actually, and I put another half an hour into it. So I put an hour and a half in, and boom, that job pretty much done. And I feel stoked about that. Next job should be this area over here that you guys never see that's got a lot of crap all over the place. I need to deal with that. Maybe just a half an hour I could put into that. But see, I'm bad at that. I don't know about you guys, but the whole like delegating time and meeting goals and stuff. It's just like I'm the guy that tends to put on the put up the computer, pull up a drum sound, and get lost in trying to mix the drums perfectly for the next 45 minutes, and then go into the guitar part and adding some bass. Going, what if I bi-amped the bass and did like a fuzz thing on the top end, and then whatever. Let's add some synth sounds. I'm that guy, In that moment, the last thing on my mind is emails. That's for sure. When maybe it should be the first thing, but okay. Hi from Turkey. Wow, that's cool. How you doing, man? I haven't been over there for a while. Last time I was in Turkey, I remember playing a festival there. I remember Smashing Pumpkins on the same bill. It was fun outside Istanbul somewhere. It was a long time ago, 2009. Rich says, hey, you Pete, just bought the Shiftline A+ Astronaut because I saw your video. Yeah, is it cool? Did you get it? New model out for this year, too. Company's Russian and still in business. Oh, cool. Good to know. Send them an email. Tell them to send me an email. Tell them that it'll take me a while to get back to them. No, if they want a review of their pedal. I love that thing. I don't even know why I have it here. I'm not sure 100% like how it got here. It could be someone else's around the studio and it ended up in my room. It's confusing to me, but it does sound great. Surfer B. He's in Boston. He says it's raining. How are you, man? Hang in there. Okay. Moving down here. Ooh, Wade says that he owned a 72 or 70 to 72 Trainer 100-watt head, YGM Reverb Master with a 610 speaker cabinet. Probably a pretty cool amp. I've never tried that one in particular. I know more about the YBA ones, which are like easily convertible into a real Plexi Marshall kind of thing. But Trainer amps are really good, man, for the most part. Well made in Canada, really reasonable for what you get, the cost, and some great tones. Yeah. Carrie Miller is asking about noise gates. Best on dirt pedals only, or if you use them on other effects. I use them anytime that I have to be honest, which is only when I'm in a really noisy room and I feel like it's just too annoying, the sound coming through the pickups. Or here sometimes in this room, which is quite noisy, I'll use, where's my gate? I do with my gate. It's usually right here. Oh, there it is. This guy works good. The Sentry from TC, pretty nice, I find. The other one I've used mainly is the MXR Smart Gate. Both of them pretty cool. And I'm generally not a fan of gates. I'm not a gate guy. I don't like that sound where they cut off the sustain, and it always sound a little bit unnatural to me, but sometimes necessary. And truth be told, once the band's playing and you know, in a mix or whatever, I don't really notice them that much. It's more like that slightly jittery sound that they can have or whatever when you hear the guitar by itself. That always drives me a little bit crazy, but for the most part, like I don't use them, but I will when I have to. So it's always good to have one in your bag, you know, around if you're carrying a guitar, you know, gig bag or whatever around. You throw one in there, and then if you're in a really noisy room, like for instance, I wish I'd had one. I didn't when we were playing in Liverpool recently, because man, it was a crazy, nutty amount of buzz going on the guitars in Liverpool, and we're filming there, so it was tough. But they'll go through and then edit it in the recording. They'll just, you know, have to go through and really, it'll be a mix thing, so that's okay. But oh, we got some folks up here in the top chat. Let's see. There's Bent, and he says, "Do you know when you will be on Ben Coombs' channel?" I don't. We got to talk about that. That was what Ben was alluding to, I'm sure, with his email. Maybe this week. I don't know, Ben. We'll figure it out, and then we'll put it up a little post on you know, our Facebooks and stuff like that, so people know when it'll be. But I think pretty soon. Who else we got here? We got a fella in Russia up here. I'm sorry, dude. I wish I could say your name, but it's written in an alphabet that I can't read. But thanks for doing the top chat, man. I appreciate that. You said, what is best attenuator for David Gilmour sounds, in your opinion? Each attenuator, as I understand from your videos, has its own character. You know, the Gilmour sound, to be honest, is really so sculpted anyway. Like, for instance, we're talking about fuzz pedals and EQs. I'm about to do a video for the Boss EQ, and I think I'm going to do something with fuzzes using it, because I want to, everybody thinks, oh, EQ, well, EQ pedal, what do you do? Like, Gilmour has in his rig, as I understand it, a dedicated EQ pedal, a Boss EQ, for every single fuzz that he has. So he's got a big muff for this and a big muff for that, a few different ones in the rig, and then he'll sculpt the sound of the fuzz using the EQ to kind of like, you know, for the perfect sound. So anyway, there's so much going on that I guess my point is, with an attenuator, my favorite one is the Powerstation, which I have over here, the Fryette Powerstation. It's not a pure attenuator, but it's a reamp device. And what it allows you to do is load your amp down to line level, and then it's got a built-in, relatively flat tube power amp that reamps the sound up to whatever level you want. So you have total control over your sound and level, and it allows you to take even maybe a 5-watt amplifier, and now you can turn it into a 50-watt amplifier, because you're going to load it down and then juice it up with the power amp that's in the Powerstation. So it allows you to know whether you're using a 100-watt amp down to a 5-watt amp, you've got control over your overall level. It's got a depth and presence control, so you have a little bit of ability to fine-tune the tone. It'll handle 4, 8, and 16 ohm loads. And then in addition to that, it's also got a built-in effects loop. So you can add some post effects if you're using something like, if you're a Gilmour nut, you're using maybe like a high watt or something like that for your core tone. It's got no effect loop in it or anything like that. If you want to run some effects post amp, this allows you to do that pretty easily. So I would recommend the Powerstation. He has a couple different versions out now. I know there's a new one out or coming out. So I don't want to actually, I'm not sure if it's out yet. I should take a look here just before I talk about it prematurely. Let's see here. I think it is out already, but I'm gonna take a look. So the Powerstation 2 is out now. He's got the PS100, which is a dual channel one. Might be stereo. Mine's the original one. Let's take a look at this new one he's got here. He's got let's see. 2 sets of remote foot switchable front panel volume, presence, and depth controls for maximum live performance. So I think the idea with the new one is that you can have a solo level, maybe, as well as a you can foot switch the controls and have a couple different settings, basically. And I think this is the one that uses, oh yeah, this is 2 KT88s, it says. So it's different power tubes he's using now. Mine has 606s in it. It's the old 50-watt one. But anyways, look at what he's got, I would say, the Powerstation, Fryette Powerstation. I think it's a really, really good product. And I use mine. I've got it in the studio here. It changes the tone of some of my amplifiers, some more than others. You know, some of them stay relatively faithfully intact, but I'm finding my amps that are midier, like Marshall-y, kind of with more. The original one, it'll scoop the sound a little bit. It'll have a little less mids than the amp, but it's something that you can kind of massage it using the controls on the amp and stuff, and still arrive at a sound that's, you know, really, really close. So anyway, they're my favorite. My favorite non kind of like passive attenuation device that's not a load reamp thing so far probably been the Iron Man 2 from Tone King. Really quite great. I've done a demo of it, so you can hear that on my channel. And it also changes the sound a little bit, but it's not just a slightly different sound. It's not like appreciably better or worse, I wouldn't say. It just changes the sound a little bit. Everything affects everything. It's really tough to end up with the exact same sound, you know. So all the time, you know. So it's, you know, Tommy Gleason is somewhere in the UK, I think, and he's up there in the top chat. He said, "Thanks for all you do. Have a beer on me." I will. You say or not? No, I'm going to do it. Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it. You talked me into it. Yeah. Carrie Miller is saying that hope I'm okay during this scary, crazy pandemic stuff. I'm good, man. I got toilet paper for the next couple of weeks, and I'm cool. And I hope you're good too. He says, I was wondering if you think noise. Oh, that I already answered the question. That was the noise gate question. Sorry. Anyways, thanks, Carrie, for the good question. Yeah. Music Therapy Laz is responding to an earlier query about the HX Stomp, and he says it worked great with pedals. Somebody else is up there in the top chat. Thanks all you guys for that's Jay Biggs, and he's just a generous fellow. Thank you guys for doing all the ultimate wonderful top chat thing, whatever it's called. Why can I never remember what it's called? Super chat? I think it's called Super Chat, but it doesn't say that. It says live chat at the top, so I always forget the name of it. Anyways. Moving down. Hello from France, says Jerome. I miss France so much, man. I wish I could get back there one of these days. I've been thinking about it a lot lately for some reason, about Paris and the time I spent there, as well as down in the south, and I love that country. Might be my favorite in Europe. Just such a, I don't know, it's a great place. Love France. If you've never been there, one great thing about France is it's one of the only, it's a big country, relatively speaking. And, you know, the north is so different than the south. And when I think about a lot of countries in Europe, and it's like, it's the one to me that has the biggest sort of change from one end to the other, you know, like, you know, what's the word that I'm looking for? You know, everything changes. God, I feel like an idiot right now. What's the word that I'm looking for? I mean, geographically speaking, I don't know, like, wish I didn't have just a high school education. I could talk about guitar, but, you know, the south of France looks like, well, it looks like Spain or something, really doesn't, or even California. I mean, when you're in Nice, and then it's very, of course, very different when you're, well, you can go to the French Alps if you want to. Anyways, well, you had a question, and I'm not answering it very well, am I? Hello from France. Have you ever used your PT100 with a slave amp, as you did with your SL68 and the Matrix? Not specifically, but you could. I mean, you could easily just slave it into it, like a Sur reactive load, for instance, and then come out of the line out, run into some effects, either a mixer or not. Just use the mix on the effects, and then go out to a stereo power amp and a pair of cabinets. No reason why not. Be a very, very cool rig. Yeah, you're saying you want to do it the EVH way. Well, I mean, yeah, I did do that actually. I didn't load the amp. When you say slave, I think of loading the amp down completely, but you're just saying EVH way, taking a tap off and that was my rig for late 2008 through, early 2010 with Chris Cornell. That's what I did. And then all the way through with Melissa Etheridge. Yeah, first tour I did with Melissa Etheridge and stuff, and Don Henley and stuff. I was using that Slave PT100 rig. I used two 112s for the effects. I had two Port City cabinets. I still have those cabinets somewhere in storage. Port City 412 and two Port City 112s for the effects. And it was that kind of rig. It's exactly what I did. Works great. There's a lot of stuff. It's the only thing, it's three cabinets, three microphones on your rig all the time. So it was like, that's why I'm saying the idea of doing the Shanks thing, no microphones, and being able to do it all on a pedal board using something like the Wetter box, and then just having a stereo line out coming out of my board, maybe with the effects all blended in and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. It's totally possible. I could do it pretty easily. Just have a dry cabinet there, maybe for the feedback and stuff, and then have I don't know. We'll see. Dennis is up there in the super chat. Thanks, Dennis. Dennis Latimer. I appreciate that. Thanks, dude. You guys are all too kind. You guys are supporting the independent musician this week. I really appreciate that. I do. Braxall says, great question that I've maybe never had before. What do you do and use to make sure you have proper power to power all your gear? Well, I've been a little bit lax about it recently because I've been traveling a little lighter than I do recently. But in years past, I always carried a Furman and a Variac, a great big Variac, and I would so specifically traveling in Europe and places like that, in Japan, you got to use transformers to change the voltage to match the gear, generally speaking. Don't have to so much anymore. Like my current pedal board has switching power supplies on it, so I can plug it in 240 or plug it in 100 volts in Japan or 118 in the US, whatever. That wasn't always the case with the original, pedal power supply. So you got to check your power supply on your board, make sure it'll handle it and stuff. A lot of people might not know this, actually, like that are doing international travel. They're still probably using voltage conversion kind of units and stuff, and step up, step down transformers, whatever. But a lot of power supplies these days will handle I got one here on my desk right now, the Eventide one. It'll do it. A lot of them these days, the companies are switching, no pun intended, to switching power supplies that'll handle any voltage. Amplifiers is a different story. Of course, you've got to use the step up or step down transformer, generally speaking, if you're flying an amp from the US to Europe or whatever. So anyways, what I would do, and even in the US, because the voltage can be like crazy in the US sometimes, I would plug into the Furman. Out of the step down transformer if I'm flying overseas into the Variac. Out of the Variac into the Furman, that all my gear, my amp, my pedal board, everything's plugged into that Furman power conditioner with a meter on it. And I would look at the meter and then change the Variac to like 115 volts generally, and just run everything like that. It's because it's amazing sometimes. You can go to Europe or something, or you go to UK especially, you go there and look at the voltage coming out of the step up or the step down transformer, depending on where you are. And the voltage would be like 128 or like something like way too high, or it could even be low, and that would always freak me out. So then having the Variac there allowed me to vary it to 115 or whatever, and then feel like, okay, I'm not, because certain amplifiers, they don't like that kind of, especially vintage amps, they don't want that kind of stress. So that's how I would do it. And even in the States, like I say, some places you'll go and it's like, whoa, it's like 125 coming out of the wall in this club in Pittsburgh or something, So, you could use the Variac to just, and I always felt like that was a bit of a safeguard on, when on tour. So Variac and a Furman with a meter. That's how I did it. Now, I know AC/DC and Bonamassa are using this thing called let me see here. AC, I'm going to find it. AC power conditioner. There's this Japanese made one. wonder if I can find it right now. Some of you guys out there might be able to figure it out just doing a simple Google search. I'm not finding it here. It's kind of new. It's made in Japan, I think, and it's pretty sophisticated and quite expensive. I don't remember the name of it, but I think Joe started using it maybe after seeing that AC/DC uses it or something. Anyway, it's a high-end, fairly expensive. Like Furman makes one here called a P2400 voltage regulator power conditioner. It's $1,600. Something like that would be the beige knees, the cat's pajamas, because just a power conditioner isn't going to help you regulate voltage, big voltage spikes and things like that. But something like this Furman, I bet, does, this 2400. Anyways, Bonamassa in some video I saw talking about it recently, I saw him using it, and he's switched to using this thing, but it's just expensive. I believe it's made in Japan. Maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. That would be the cool one to get, I would say. Mark's up there in the top chat, ultimate chat, super chat. Thanks, Mark Paradise. I appreciate that. Thanks for doing that. You guys are too kind. Zachary says, more Tim and Pete videos. I know, man. I miss that dude. I got to text him to see how he's doing. I haven't talked to him actually in a long time, so I need to do that. I want to sign up for his lessons because I'm doing that. I've been doing, anybody look at my Instagram, I put up a lesson, really cool way to play pentatonics. I don't have an amp plugged in right now, but it's on my YouTube. And the basic concept, it's a Andy Wood thing, and he's showing how to play pentatonics like this with this. This is the basic idea. Okay, so let's just take 2-string groups. So down on the 6th string, key of A minor pentatonic, you're going to play the root and the flat third. Okay, down on the 6th string, and I'm using my 1st and 3rd fingers to do that, and I'll show you why. Because on the 5th string, then you're going to hit the 4th, the 5th, and the flat 7th. And that's a big stretch of the flat 7th, so you're going to use your pinky for that. Now simply move that same sort of sequence or shape down to the next set of strings, the 4th and 3rd strings, and you get the next octave. Okay? Like that, and you can really fly through the scale that way. So give it a try. It's a really neat way to play pentatonics, and it kind of sounds like Eric Johnson. And you can pick it quite fast as well as hammers and pulls. I'm not warm, I just picked up the guitar, but it's a really neat way to play pentatonics. So give it a try. But anyways, I just learned that last night. I put up a little clip on my Instagram if you want to hear it through an amp and kind of playing it faster and more when I'm warmed up. I don't have COVID-19. I just coughed on my own spittle. But anyways, it's fun, like doing a little more practice than I've been used to recently. And I signed up for Andy Timmons' site this week. There was an option to sign up for a month, so I did that. And I'm going to go sign up for Tim's studio guitar course and just try and put in some time on all these great lessons that are out there. Because why not? We have the time. Yeah, Tim Pierce. He's a good man. Okay, moving down in the chat. Darren says, my matchless Avalon has an effects loop with only one socket. How does that work? I don't know. Does anybody out there have an Avalon? Maybe it's a send and return on the same, like on a stereo jack. That could be. 469 people online. That's a nice amount of people. Most I've had in a while, I think. Great to see all you guys here. Somebody out there go to work and do a search on the matchless Avalon. Have a look. I bet it's at send and return on the same jack, which is kind of, I wonder why they would do that. Is there like limited space on the panel or something? I'm not sure about that, but oh man, I'm far behind in the chat, aren't I? Sorry. I'm gonna move down here in a second, but DB Kincaid 1 says, caught some of the classic rock show on YouTube with you in it. Thanks, man. How great you had the opportunity to play with them. It was really fun. How did it happen? It was YouTube, really. James Cole, the guy that is an MD and kind of runs the whole thing. He was, saw me on YouTube, and that's how I've gotten a few gigs actually over the last few years. But YouTube's been really good for, it's the ultimate, reel. You know, if you were an actor and you had a reel, it's like YouTube's like, just go on there and you see what people do. And it's like, oh, well, I either want that guy in my band or I don't, you know? So it's been really helpful that way. But he contacted me via email, just kind of via my website, probably. I think, you know, the original. It was a long time ago. It was like a year and a half ago. He hit me up and said, "Hey, man, you know, we're thinking about, you know, doing this thing, and would you want to be a part of it?" And so, okay, one more question. I'm gonna move down to the bottom of the chat here because I'm so far behind. I'm sorry. Please ask again if I missed your question. Stefan says, in your classic rock show, there's a Helix Stomp next to your floorboard, but you don't mention it. Is it backup? Yes, it's backup. I've got it set up with 2 patches, with a crunchy rhythm patch and a lead sound patch. And if all went to hell with my whole rig, there was a cable plugged into it. I could just plug it in and it was all run to the PA, and I would have a rig and could continue on with some sort of tone, you know. Yeah. Okay, one more here. What's your favorite OD boost to push a plexi into 80s and Van Halen territory? Well, to be honest, if it's a plexi and you want to do Van Halen, all you really need is something like the EP Clinch booster, Clinch EP Pre, it's called, which is an Echoplex preamp in a pedal. Dunlop makes one now too. I've never tried it. I don't know what that one sounds like. But for Van Halen, all you really need is an SL68 or a great plexi, something like that, and you got to run it on 10 and do the whole thing. And nothing quite sounds like that, but the PT15 does a great. I mean, I can get really close. I was playing it last night with the gain on 8 on the amp. It sounds great, but you know that if you want to go all the way with it, just you got to have the right amp, and then you got to maybe just hit it with the Echoplex preamp or something like that, and maybe also have like a tape delay in the front, the phaser, and the flanger, and then you're right there, you know. There's a way you can get a little bit of plate reverb happening somehow post. Sounds really good. Arthur says, have you noticed a major tonality change from old analog pedals to newer digital pedals? You know, newer digital pedals are super convenient and they sound really close and great. There is always something about just plugging in a Phase 90 and going like, oh, there's that. I remember what that sounds like. There it is. Or a Univibe or whatever. And you go, oh, yeah. It just kind of does that thing, and you don't have to try that hard. I don't know. There's just something about them that's always really easy and sounds right. A great analog effect. Anything, you know. It can be the Boss DM2, or you plug it in. It's like it does what you expect it would do. There's that sound. It's warm and chewy, and good analog chorus is an awesome thing, you know. So it's the simplicity of it, I think. Not that you can't get it out of a digital effect, but it always seems like it's a little more work. A lot of them sound great. I mean, the Mobius I love, you know, I think it's awesome. There's a little more tweaking to get it. Just, you know, there's always that thing about plugging a CE1 or they just sound like well, there it is, you know, I don't know. It reminds me of analog recording. If anybody's done much of that, you know, you just kind of record and you go in and listen to the take and go, shit, that sounds good. Didn't try that hard. Just put the mics up, pulled up the faders. Phil says he met Josh Smith. He's up in the ultimate super chat thingamajig. Says he uses batteries for his dirt pedals. Yes, he does. You know, he uses a Vertex battery power supply for all my dirt pedals and a True Tone CS12 for everything else. I'm now a believer. They sound different. I mean, power definitely changes. Voltage and stuff definitely changes, you know, the sound of a pedal. I mean, if you run it at 9 volts or it's a slightly weak battery, or 12 volts or 15 volts or 18 volts. There's plenty of pedals now that, you know, I'm doing a demo right now for this Aura Effects Crunchmaster distortion. And you can run it 9 to 18 and it totally changes the sound when you change the voltage. So there's that aspect. Whether or not you run things on batteries, I mean, certain pedals are going to change the sound, you know, fuzzes and things for sure. It can definitely have an effect. There's a, you know, talking earlier about power conditioners and things like that, there's a consistency if you just use a battery that is hard to deny, where it's like, well, you don't have that extra layer of, you know, inconsistency going on, right? When you're changing the power from club to club and stuff, and things could be, I don't know. If you hear a difference and you're happy, that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. It's always balancing, like, convenience with tone, you know, seems like. Brendan's from Ireland, and he says, hope everybody's taking advantage of lockdown and getting lots of practice in. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Definitely doing lots of that. Okay, moving down to the bottom of the chat. Please ask again if I missed your question. ST Design says, can you please play the first few bars of Ramble On? Sure. I can't remember how to play it. I forget things pretty quick. Let me see. I do forget it. There it is. No. Something like that. So it's a right. So like a B sus, you know, but you don't play the B or the, you know. This. And then the bridge. So that's the acoustic part. Yeah. And I never played it right until I really learned it for the recent tour. And then I really went and listened and did a little research. And it's like, oh, okay. Now I understand. Okay, William is up in the top chat there, and he says, hey, Pete, sorry if I missed you talking about it at some point. Curious about that Lake Placid Sur with the roasted neck. Just bought one like it, the new locking bridge. Did you? Oh, cool. That's awesome. Super excited. Thanks for all you do. I hope you like the bridge. I'm sure you will. And one thing that I'm sure you'll find is that it sounds great, which is okay. So recently I've got my white Sur Classic, and it got 6-screw old Goto bent saddle bridge on it, and I put the lock saddles on it because I had an extra set of just the saddles, and I stuck them on there. So it's a six-screw traditional Strat style bridge, you know, but with the new lock saddles. And not only did it stay in tune way better, but the tone was great. And I was like, we have these preconceived, like, you know, on a vintage bridge, you think, oh, the bent saddles is the way to go. The lock saddles, I think, sounded better. And I think they sound better than the Goto blocks, you know, the big block saddles, which sound different. You know, they have a different sound. Not bad necessarily. I just, you know. But anyway, so I really like the sound. And so I hope you like it. Yeah, the guitar is over there. And it's a, I don't know, maybe made in 2007 or something. And it had a neck on it where I didn't like the shape, and the Sur guys got me a new neck for it. So 21 fret, roasted, really nice shape, and it's a great guitar. It sounds really good. It's it's a terrific, just a great straight up S style, isn't it? All right. What else we got here? How do you work out your ohms for a 412 cabinet, 2 V30s and 2 greenbacks, says Gary. It depends on the ohmage of the speakers. So it's not about the greenback or V30 or anything, but you just have to look and make sure that they probably say on the back, generally they do, but if they're 8 ohm speakers or 16 ohm speakers, you can wire them in different ways so that you can get, 4 16 ohm speakers for a 16 ohm cabinet, 4 8 ohm speakers for an 8 ohm cabinet, but you can also wire them in different ways to get different ohmages. So depending on if you do the, what do they call it, series parallel or parallel wiring or all these different types of, so you can wire 4 16 ohm speakers for 4 ohms. Right. So there's all the different, go online and Google guitar speaker cabinet wiring diagram, and you will get a slew of pictures that pop up and show you exactly how to wire all the different, depending on, but look on the back of your speakers and you'll see the ohmage of the speakers, and then you'll know what to do. And hopefully they're all the same, because that's what you want. You're going to want, generally speaking, for a 412, you're going to want 4 16 ohm speakers or 4 8 ohm speakers. And you're generally speaking going to wire it then with a certain wiring scheme for either 8 ohms for the 4 8s or 16 ohms for the 4 16s. That's the most common thing. Joe Wright is up there in the top chat thing, and he says, love the Classic Rock Show. Any chance of a US tour? Yes, they are talking about that once this whole thing blows over and stuff. I mean, that's the plan for sure. Which I really like to do. I'm really excited to do it in the US. Switch up the set a little bit and do a little bit more, just a little bit, tailor it for US audience, and be super fun. So I think that'll happen at some point. Jason Carter says, forget Corona. He had food poisoning from a German sausage, and he's over the worst. WURST. I get it. I see what you did there. Let's see there. There's a fellow from Norway here. From Norway. I don't know why I'm talking like that. He says, hope you're all safe and Corona free. So far, doing okay. Let's see. Preston Smith says, my guitar is very stable right up until I hit the whammy bar. You must have an old SG or something. I've had people ask me, like, how do you use that thing on those guitars? I'm like, you just don't. That's how. Yeah, it's a dangerous game. Living on the edge. Anyways, thanks, guys, once again to Joe Wright and to William up there in the ultimate chat thing, super chat, whatever, top chat. I appreciate it, guys. Oscillation Overdrive. I don't know what he's talking about. Sorry, Oscillation Overdrive. I thought you had a question, but okay. Moving down in the chat. What does he mean about plugging in a CE pedal, says Oscillation Overdrive? I see. A CE1 or CE2, the old Boss chorus ensemble. Sorry. Wasn't clear about that. But I meant, we were talking about analog pedals. Somebody was asking if I feel like the old analog classics, if there's a difference plugging in the digital stuff these days, or do they nail it and stuff. And I mentioned that something like a CE1 original Boss chorus ensemble, the first chorus pedal, or, I mentioned a Phase 90 or any of those great classics, just plugging in, they kind of do have that instant gratification effect of just like, well, that sounds good. Just that warm tone. I tell you, something about it is that the simplicity, and I'm on a big simplicity kick these days, but there's a lot to be said for simplicity when it comes to guitar rigs and the goal is to make music. And I think that's part of something about a Phase 90. It just, you plugged it in and it sounded great. You plugged in an analog delay on a Phase 90 and maybe that was all you had, or that maybe those things with a a compressor, and now you're Andy Summers, and an electric mistress, and there was your tone. And look at all the great music he composed with just some simple effects like that, right? Like a tape delay, flanger slash chorus, and a compressor, and a world of awesome guitar parts came out. Or Hendrix with a fuzz, right? I mean, it was fuzz face, wah, and octave, or univibe. That's it. Whole career, And so I don't know, the simplicity of it all, just plugging it in and getting a cool tone and making some music was a wonderful thing. I think that's the biggest thing. Simplicity is not me, says Preston Smith, but minimalist is probably better. Yeah, I mean, I guess simplicity is not me. Truth be told, if you look at my pedal board or whatever, it's not exactly simple. I suppose it's not nearly as complicated as something like John Shanks's, but do you use compressors much on your live gigs, says Stealth Parrot? Yeah, pretty much anytime I got the clean channel on, I'm using a compressor. I feel naked without it these days. If I don't have the amp at least on the edge of overdrive, if it's a clean sound, I gotta have a compressor. It just feels like wimpy to me without it, So, yeah. Brett says he loves the Deluxe Electric Mistress. Yeah, killer, awesome, cool pedals. Definitely. Okay, what else we got here? Was just looking at Vox AC30 style amps and came across the Trainwreck Rocket. Have I ever tried one, says Gavin. Only once. There ain't a lot of them out there. I've got a friend in New York, Gene. Anybody know ultrasound amps in New York? I don't think it's there anymore, but he still has his collection, I do believe. Gene from Ultrasound, a great guy. Really nice guy, and God, he was good to me over the years. As educating me about things, but also, he would get me sets of new old stock Mullards and stuff like that over the years. And his wife was a big Chris Cornell fan, so I'd always put him on the list, and he could come see the Chris Cornell shows, and with her, and they were always so cool. And then he'd send me like tubes or something like that as a thank you. He's so sweet. He was just a great guy. But anyways, Gene owned 5 Trainwrecks, including one that used to belong to Billy Gibbons and one that belonged to George Lynch, 2 of the Express style amps, which is the L34. But I believe I played his Rocket. And one day when I went to Ultrasound, I played through like 4 Trainwrecks. And he just had so much gear, tons of great, and he was a real aficionado of like old Celestion speakers and stuff, and 412s, and interesting guy. But I digress. Yeah, the Express was the Rocket was the EL84, and yeah, killer amplifier. I think like Dr. Z has something similar. It's kind of based off that, and maybe Brent Mason model or something. Maybe not Brent Mason. Oh, who's the guitar player that? Oh no, I'm forgetting his name. I'm so stupid. Not Brent Mason. Cowboy hat, Telly. I'm describing every country player. Brad Paisley. That's who I'm thinking of. Brad Paisley, Dr. Z amp. Let me see if I can find the name of it here, because it's supposed to be similar, I think. Paisley, Dr. Z. Let's see, what's it called? Dr. Z, the Z-Rec. Yeah, the Z-Rec. Supposed to be, and you can go on and see there's demos and stuff with Brad Paisley playing the amp. I think that's one kind of modern, probably relatively easily accessible. Let's check that out. Brad's original Z. Okay, let's see, Z-Rec, Dr. Z. Let's look a little bit of the history on the Z-Rec. Why not? This is something we don't usually talk about. AC30 boutique amps. Oh, that's interesting. 2006, he actually asked Dr. Z asked Ken Fisher to lend a hand. So Ken's, of course, Trainwreck. And built up the prototype amp, sent it off to Ken. Ken did his thing to it and sent it back, including naming the amp the Z-Rec. After a few more tweaks, the amp was sent off to Brad and has become a mainstay of his rig since 2006. And I guess Brad liked the amp a lot and has mentioned it. So anyway, check out the Z-Rec. Interesting. A little bit of Trainwreck lineage there, and definitely based on an EL84 kind of situation. I've never owned a Dr. Z. Anybody out there got one? I would love to try one of these days. I played through one a couple times at I think at the dealer in LA is at Tone. It's the store in Santa Monica, True Tone. Yeah. So that's the only place I've ever played Dr. Z out there. But is your Sir Mahogany Deluxe Blacktop available to order from Sir? Yeah, it's actually the Pete Thorn signature model. So if you go to the Sir website and you go to guitars and go to the signatures and go to me, you'll see it there. But yeah, it was originally born from the Mahogany Deluxe. That's right. I played a Mahogany Deluxe out there, and I'm like, this is a lovely sounding guitar. It's really nice. All mahogany neck, mahogany body, and I never would have thought it was a beautiful guitar. And I thought, let me order one like this, but I want to do a black top with a red back and all that. And that's how it all started. And there's the guitar over there. The original 2014, I think I got this. Something like that. But this is where it all started. So I still don't have a black one. That's technically my signature model. This one has John's signature on the back of the headstock. But this is basically my signature model. Only thing different is pickup rings, right? This one doesn't have them, but I wanted to do something different, so we did the rings, and I think it's become kind of a cool touch on my guitar. And yeah, you can totally get this guitar. It's probably when I think about it, if I could only have one color, it would be still the black. With just think it's classy with the black and the red. Look at that, come on, it's sexy. It's just cool. And thanks so much for doing the ultimate chat thing, top super chat. That's what it's called. Appreciate it, our kid. Super chat. I just went into my game show host. Well, tell us what's up next, Bob. Okay. Moving down in the chat. Let's see what else we got here. What made you switch to the DD500 from the Timeline? It was really Friedman. He loves those Boss pedals, and he was talking to me about it when he was making the new board, and I was like, yeah, I'll try one. And I like it. I like the Timeline too. I don't have a clear favorite, to be honest. Both cool, but I just was ready to try something different. I'd had a Timeline on my board for probably like 8 years or something. I just wanted to try something else. So, what's my favorite compression pedals, as I remember? I have a few. The Cali 76, the big one, is out friggin' standing. I've never A-B'd it directly. Maybe someday I'll do that with the little guy. Something about the big one, just, I don't know. I mean, I've got it right here in the drawer. I'll put it to that way beside me, that if I need a certain thing, I'll pull it out and plug it in because I know that's the go-to. So that's probably overall, I would say, if I had to pick a Desert Island compressor, it would be the original Cali 76, the giant one. And I've almost put it on pedal boards at times, even though it's so huge. It's like, that's going to take up a good solid 1/5 of the board if you put that on there. But it's a great thing. That said, my current board has an Ego mini comp from Wampler, which is a great sounding little pedal. And it takes up a very minimal amount of space. I really like it. For another small one that I really like, and I'll use it here in the studio a lot, is this one, the little SP from Exotic. I think this is a really good sounding little pedal. Both of them probably about equal. I like them. I would say the Wampler and this one. For mini ones, they're great. Really like the Koji from Sir. The Koji is kind of expensive studio compressor sounding. It has like a nice, really nice quality to it. The GC2 from Keeley is basically a DBX 160X in a pedal, and it sounds awesome. I really like that too, and it's very simple. There's 3 knobs on it, and that's it. That's a really good sounding pedal that I forget about it sometimes. I've got it on my Helix-based board that lives at home mainly. really good sounding pedal. So there's a few favorites. There's about 5 that I've named, I think, that are all really nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. What else have we got here? Brad says he's a total gear geek. I agree. Wade Jones says Blackstar amps with a question mark. The only Blackstar amp, I don't know that I've ever plugged into a big Blackstar amp, maybe at a jam or something. But other than that, my little $75 mini Fly Rig 3 or whatever it's called, which I lost somewhere. I left it in Japan and I never saw it again. Great little thing. That's the only Blackstar that I've got any experience with. Sorry, but really nice. Yeah. BB Ninja's in Tokyo, I think he says, and there's snow there right now. Really, doesn't snow there that much. I was there once when it snowed, only once, and it was cool. I remember opening up the curtains in my hotel room, and it was a snowstorm. I was like, whoa, neat. Tim Barry is in the super chat, and he says, "May God bless Juan already." Agreed in his recovery. Poor dude, man. He had a bicycle accident, and I went and donated a while ago. And anyway, check out he's got a GoFundMe if you haven't. It's a bad traumatic brain injury situation, and really nice guy. I met him at didn't spend a lot of time with him. I don't know why at the GitCon event, the Warwick factory a couple of years ago. But I met him and got to hang with him a little bit there. And I was, of course, familiar with him from playing bass in Racer X and stuff. Seemed like a really nice guy. So, anyways, he's got a GoFundMe one already, and if you have time, check it out because him and his family going through a tough time. Let's see here. Elscott Music. Lauren says, "Is Morgan a better Vox or just different?" I don't know. I've played a few Morgan amps and heard them. Josh Smith really likes them, and I've met Joe a few times. Once again, an amp I'm not super familiar with, but I think basically he's doing kind of boutique takeoffs, much like Divided by 13, putting his own spin kind of on some classic amplifiers. He's got a few, devotees like Josh for sure that are terrific players. Rico USA is up there in the super chat. Thanks, buddy. He says, any point of view, POV, on the new Kemper cab and clones, which use a custom non-powered Celestion speaker that offers 19 speaker imprint profiles. I'm planning to mod a bass breaker cab. If you were me, would you mod a 112 or 212? Are you talking about? I don't know which Celestion you're talking about. I'm not familiar with this particular Kemper. I better take a look here. I'll just search it really quick. But I do know of a Celestion speaker that I've got in the other room here that I've tried, called the FVX200 or whatever the hell it's called. Britt did a video on it, actually. You can go watch and see what you think. She played her line 6 stomp into the Matrix power amp and then into this cabinet, and we hooked it up here, and I was pretty knocked out. I actually had it here in this room. It's a full range speaker, but it looks like a guitar speaker, so I'm wondering if they're just doing an OEM kind of version of that or something. Let's see here. Kemper cab. If it's a Celestion and it's a full range speaker, I'm going to say that's probably what it is. It says it's 200 watt 112 guitar cabinet. I know the Celestion is 200 watts, the one I'm thinking of. I bet you it's the same speaker. Celestion does that stuff sometimes. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, so don't quote me on it, but it might be just an OEM, like that speaker, and then they put a Kemper sticker on it or something. I don't know. What's it say here? Kemper cabinet 112 passive guitar cabinet. Yeah, the Celestion's passive. Faithfully captures an amp in the room response of 19 sought after speaker types, firing out of an all wood cabinet. From modern to vintage, players more ways to customize the moderated sound of their virtual stacks and stomps. Says it's a Celestion designed Kemper clone full range speaker driven by the profiler's own baked in DSP. Okay, I'm going to say that the speaker is got to be really close, if not the same, to that. Uh, I'm looking at a picture of it here. It's got to be the similar technology to the. Go watch Britt's video on. If you search Britt Bowman Celestion, you're going to find her video of the X200, whatever the hell it's called. I can't remember the name of it right now. But it's a 200-watt speaker, and you can listen to her demo it with a HX Stomp and stuff and see. It's I don't know if you need a 212 or I would say the 212 112 thing depends on how how loud you want to get and all that kind of stuff. It's a 200-watt speaker. It's going to be pretty damn loud, on its own. I would say maybe I would probably go 112 to be honest. The thing that Celestion told me about their version of what I think is probably a pretty similar speaker is they said that most PA or full range style speakers are the opposite of a guitar speaker. Not only that they're meant to reproduce full range sound, but also in their design in that they're very stiff and tough. And so 200-watt speaker, generally speaking, they use real thick paper, and they're not meant to have the give and the like a guitar speaker is a super non-linear, random affair. And the what they were trying to do is in a full range speaker, give it the feel, not just the full range sound, but the feel and response of a guitar speaker. And also it was neat that you could kind of supposedly load it in just about any cabinet. And it was obviously probably going to change the sound. Well, it will, because everything affects everything. But their goal was make a speaker that you can just put in your average open back 112. I've got this nice boutique kind of open back cabinet here. You want to see the cabinet? I'll just show it to you. I'll get it. It's in the other room. Hold on 1 second and I'll show you what I did. For all you modeler guys, you might find this interesting. Just 1 sec. Where is it? What did I do with it? Sorry. Took a little longer than I thought it would. Here's the cabinet. So this cabinet was made by a nice gentleman somewhere here in California. It's like an unfinished oval back, open 112. And you can see the speaker in there. I'm panting because it was like I actually had to lift like 3 cabinets to get to this one. But anyways, not a lot of thought put into what I was doing when I put this in here. I just put it in this cabinet. I was like, I wonder what this is going to sound like, because it's just crazy. It's a 200-watt, full range affair. You'll find it on Celestion's website. You can see it there. And basically, you plug your modeler into this thing. And I was kind of blown away. Like, as far as a full range solution, just use a relatively flat power amp and plug into here. And it really does, actually maybe more so than most, QSC monitors or different things that people use to monitor their Axe effects or whatever. This feels kind of it was really like, it had character, kind of like a guitar cabinet. I don't know how else to describe it. The feel, and it was like, when you try something and like the first instinct or whatever was like, oh, yeah. Like that's that thing. It feels like a guitar cabinet. That's what I thought as soon as I plugged it in. They really kind of achieved something with it. You know, I feel like the name is a little. I don't know if I would have called it what they called it, because I can't even remember the name of it. I can't even remember now. I saw it, but the F12X200, I think. F12X200. Full range, live response, it says on the back. Power, 200 watts. You know, so it's a coax with the treble driver is in the middle, and then the, you know, but it looks like a guitar speaker, and it feels like a guitar speaker in that cabinet, at least, you know. Pretty neat. Anyways, what else we got going on here, folks? Moving down in the chat. Bent Russum says the DD500 has the SDE 3000 algorithm that Dave Friedman loves. Dave ran 2 original SDE units at NAMM this year, probably why he likes the DD500. Yeah, correct. It's that, and he's also just a fan of Boss as a company in general. We're all friends with Yoshi, who is like the coolest head of a major company that you can possibly imagine. Yoshi is Boss, you know. He's the president of Boss, the boss of Boss, as we like to say. And he's a great hang. And I really like him, like as a dude. I've hung out with him in Japan, and I always remember him, like literally like just having drinks and stuff like that. He'll come out and just hang out, and he's super cool. And he's like, I only want to make things that are cool. You know, I remember him always saying that. I left a big, because I don't, you know, it's not just about making money. He goes, I don't want to make it if it's not cool. And that's why you've seen such great things coming out of Boss. You know, this is sort of the Waza pedals, for instance, you know, where it's like, for many years, Boss was kind of reluctant to go back and do things. They always wanted to move forward, and they still want to move forward. And they did it in a great way with the Waza pedals, where they gave you an awesome kind of mod or custom sound with every pedal. The SD1 Waza, or the DD, you know, or I should say the DM2 Waza, you know, where it had more delay time and more headroom or whatever on that kind of thing with the custom sound. So it was a way to revisit their past and make something cool, and then also move forward. But you see them doing really neat things, you know, and that's really it's a top-down thing. So he's a great guy. And so it's partially, you know, yeah, it's got the SDE 3000 and I guess that's the same, you know, the DD500 and the, you know, they're paying tribute to the kind of the legacy of something like the SDE 3000, which, by the way, Yoshi designed. So he's the head of Boss, but he also was, you know, he was there back in the late 70s, man. It's crazy. I'm about to, I just missed this chat. No, I didn't. It's TCM up there in the super chat thing. He says, hey, Pete, any chance of a 6-screw bent saddle run of the PT Signature? No. I don't, like the one that I just had, I don't know about a fender bridge, but the one that I just had on my White Sir, it was a tuning nightmare, to be honest, on that guitar. The 6-screw and the saddles, the bent saddles. It was a Goto. I couldn't keep that guitar in tune. It was a real bear to keep in tune. And so as soon as I put the new saddles on, it's so much better now. Now I'm also going to put locking tuners on it here eventually. But I'm a big fan of staying in tune. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but my old Strat, my 64, which is all original, stays in tune great. The trem is, I don't know, it's awesome. There's something about it that it just stays in tune. It's just the original saddles and old rusty saddles, bent saddles. It stays in tune awesome. Newer 6-screw bent saddle kind of bridges, I have a nightmare of a time keeping them in tune. Once you go to the dark side, or maybe the light side, and use the Wilkinson bridge, it's got great tone. And once you lock the strings in the saddles and you get like close to Floyd Rose kind of tuning stability, I go back, you know. I just don't want to, but that's just me, you know. Thank you for doing the top chat, though. And super chat. Jay Biggs is up there, too. Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys very much. Yeah. It's cool you have a signature model, but it also sucks. Tough to buy signature stuff without coming off like a fanboy, says John. Well, the wacky stuff is, or the sucky part is your stuff rules, says John. You know, one thing that I always say, and I do a part of this in my clinic where I talk about my signature gear, and the goal was, I use the example of somebody like Petrucci or Vi, who are amazing, obviously, and stylists doing their thing. And living the dream 100%, like when their own bands or their own, obviously Steve Vai is an entity unto himself. That's amazing. And Petrucci in Dream Theater and stuff. And when you do that, you can make your guitar, and Petrucci's guitars are crazy shapes and stuff like that, and Vai too. And if you do get one, you're obviously a fan because it's that thing. But it is that thing 100%, right? So and it's a beautiful thing, but it's that, and what I had to do, I feel like, when I designed something signature, because I'm a jack of all trades sideman guy. I'm not like I've got a couple records out, but my main career, let's face it, is like, I play with different artists and I cop a lot of different sounds and learn things off records. And I'm a sideman learning things, Vai's done that, of course, in his career, but he, from the beginning, he did it with Frank Zappa, obviously. And then with Dave Lee Roth, he did it, but he obviously started to make his own. Meanwhile, he puts out 2 solo albums during the first, and then builds his own career to the point where he did Whitesnake. But by then he was really a personality. And then ever since then, he's just a, almost like a household name, right? If you're a sideman, you need a guitar that fits in a ton of situations and can't stand out too much. So I tried to make something that would fit in many different situations, and wouldn't, you could be in a pop band or an R&B band or hard rock band or different things, and it would fit in the look of the guitar, as well as the sonics and the sounds, would fit in many different situations. It wouldn't scream like, Pete Thorn signature guitar with a point going this way and one going this way and something, some crazy look that, like, whatever, that, you know what I'm saying? So God bless the guys that do it, though. And are, when I think about Akira from Loudness, he's got his, 3 on a side headstock on a Star guitar with like mirrored lightning bolts and stuff like that, or Dime, different people that really made their mark, and that was their signature thing, and a personalized look. Eddie Van Halen with stripes, right? It's like, there's only one of those guys, and it is tough. I agree. I mean, the main reason why I got the guitar, my Van Halen guitar that's back there in the corner with I say Van Halen guitar, but it's black with a tortoiseshell pickguard and stuff. It's got all the parts and all that stuff to kind of go for that vibe and sound, but it's not painted with the stripes, because I just feel like it's tough to go. I would like to have one, secretly. I'd love to get maybe I will one of these days, like the new Frankie, the lesser, why can't I talk today? Less expensive version of the Frankie from EVH. I'd love to have one of those around here. Why not? But okay, moving down in the chat. You don't get a signature guitar being a sideman, says Jason. Well, I did. You're a main man, says Jason. Thanks, man. I mean, hey, I still think of myself primarily as the it's a different age now with the internet and YouTube and what's happened and all that, right? Like, I've got my own thing for sure, but I like kind of the being in a band with a singer that, maybe I'm lazy or something. I don't know. Because I'll tell you what, being one of I was talking to Phil X a while ago, back when he was, fortunately, he had to come home and not do all his tour dates in Europe. But he said, man, like, this is hard, like doing your whole, like, you got to do everything. Like when he scheduled his own tours, what I'm saying, over in Europe, and, was flying around doing drills dates. And he's like, it's like next level. Like when you're the guy is what I'm getting at. So maybe it's just out of laziness that I do what I do, but I like to think I'm not lazy, but maybe I am, compared to somebody like John Bon Jovi. Okay. Moving down in the chat, gonna look around here, see what we got. What do we got? Yoshi's in Kyoto at the moment, says BV Ninja. I saw that, actually. I saw a picture this morning on, I like the pictures he puts up on Instagram and stuff. He's a cool guy. Yeah. The Celestian Kemper was not available in January, says Paul Ewing. The prototype was supposed to be ready soon. Kemper wanted to have full range, but feel like a guitar Celestian. That's what they told me this thing does. That thing. I talked at length with somebody there about the design of it, and they wanted it to feel like a guitar speaker. So Zachary says Pete's next record will be that model or cab mic with a 57 and 121. No, not quite. I do have something interesting coming though with Celestion, so it's coming eventually. I'm gonna spoil it, but it's coming. Guitar speakers. You'll see. You'll see soon. It's gonna be cool. Yeah. Okay, what else have we got here? We're going for 300 likes, says Murray Williams. Yeah, hit that like button if you guys are having fun. 468 people online. That's awesome. Thank you guys for being here, talking guitar with me. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Okay. Pete needs a grandfather clock, so we know the stream isn't frozen, says Chris. Yeah, I hope it's going good. I've seen a couple of people say that they're wondering if I don't know if it's my stream or other ones, but buffering, is there a problem? Seems okay to me. September Fire is in the super chat. He says he installed trem setters on his guitars and an upgrade he should have done long ago. Looking forward to trying the PT15 in my plugin. Trem setters. Is that what I had on one of my Sirs? I tried one of those ones with it replaces one of the springs in the back, and it's got the two little screws on it that drove me crazy because I'd always lose the screws. They would fall out, but they did sound good. It was really, so it's this thing that you can put in your guitar and kind of block the tremolo at any time that you want. You can either have it floating, you can have it just go down, or you can completely lock the trem. Interesting thing I found with that thing is the tone was really great when you put the screws in, and it kind of, it was like an extra, I don't know, made me think about floating tremolos and stuff. It was one more thing I didn't want to think about, to be honest. Oh no, not another thing I need to worry about, but you know what I mean? Like another aspect of tone that, but you'd screw the screws down, that would lock the bridge and it would only go down, or you could fix it so that it wouldn't go down at all. We're up. And it did kind of, it's like, oh, when I do that, the sound gets there's more sustain and it seemed more solid. It was interesting. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here, guys? Moving down the chat. Braxall says he was talking to the folks at Guitar Sanctuary in McKinney near Dallas, and they're trying to get something worked out to do a clinic. That's right. Everything's on hold now with COVID-19, of course, so there's no travel or clinics going on, but we'll push it to hopefully the fall. And I hope to do something then. It's supposed to happen in May and stuff, but all that got, so right now it's all on hold. So, but it'll happen. We'll do it for sure. TCM is up there in the super chat. Thanks, man. He says, got any songs where you heard them and were like, man, I wish I'd written that? Pretty much anything by the Beatles. What would my last meal on death row be? Sushi from Nozawa. I don't even have to think about it. I'd have to ask Nozawa. It'd be Sugarfish, but I'd ask for Nozawa to personally make it. Yeah, even though he's not doing that anymore. Anybody ever eat Sushi Nozawa in LA? When it was still Sushi Nozawa, now it's Sugarfish. Any sushi fans out there? It's an experience unlike anything you've ever. It's unbelievable. I don't know what the hell they do to the fish. They must treat it with some chemical or something. It's melt in your mouth sushi. It's just like, I take people there and that have never been there, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Generally, when they have the first bite, it's like that kind of experience where they're like, it's like an epiphany. So. And Sugarfish, to be honest, they do. The story was Sushi Nozawa was in the strip mall. It was a great sushi place in the strip mall in LA, Studio City, little unassuming looking place, And evidently he was there for a few years, and business wasn't going that good and stuff. And then something happened. A review critic or something went in there, and the whole place took off after that. But guy came from Japan, I think, and eventually, started doing his thing. And anyway, he had the signs up on the wall in there that said, "Don't think, just eat," and he would kick you out if you were ever on the phone in there. So he had a strict no cell phone policy, and if you so much as answered a text out, and you'd literally be banned from the restaurant forever. So when I used to go there, and you know, this was a legendary place and supposed to be one of the top 2 sushi places in LA. I started going. I remember when I go, I leave my phone in my car in the glove box. I don't even want that thing. Like, what if I forget to turn off the ringer and it rings when I'm in there, even if I don't touch it, you know? So, and the deal was that you couldn't order either when you sat at the bar. It was all omakase style, where you just make you the food and you just eat. I love the "Don't think, just eat" signs, and he had tons of them behind the bar. Different people would make them for him, I think, and he'd put them up. And it was quite expensive, but holy shit, it was the best. I mean, it's I bar none, I think the best food I've ever eaten in my life. And I would go in there some days and just sit. It was years ago when I lived in Studio City, the first time I lived in Studio City. So this is around 2005, 2006. And I'd go in there and sit there and just by myself. I like to go by myself. And this guy, you know, Nozawa, he's famous. You know, he'd give me this, sit there serving me this unbelievable food. I'd try and get there right when it opened, then it wasn't busy. And I just freak out, you know, for the next half an hour eating this food, and then, you know, pay my $80 bill for, you know, no booze or anything, just food, and leave. And I would do that at least once every 2 weeks. Anyway, eventually, he's quite old. He was old at the time, and eventually his son, you know, sort of partnered with him or whatever, I guess, and said we should make this a bigger thing. And that's how Sugarfish was born. And Nozawa is still a big part of it, I think, like going to the fish market, picking the fish every day and stuff like that. But now there's locations, and the original one is now a Sugarfish in Studio City, as well as Marina del Rey. There's one in Pasadena. There's probably like 8 of them around LA. But they do a great job, and it is really, really, really close to what you originally got from Nozawa. It was just I'm glad I got in back when I used to sit there with the guy. And I remember the first time he said to me, after serving me a bunch of food, I just look at him I'd be so into it, you know, I wouldn't even say anything. I'd just be shaking my head. I can't believe how good this is, you know? And then when he looked at me and he goes, okay, your choice. Like, I got oh my God, he's going to let me pick what I want next. That was like a big deal. I felt like very special. Like I'd crossed some sort of threshold, and it was a great, like, I don't know. I loved going there. That guy was talking about a master of what he did. But yeah, that's my death row meal. Nozawa. Phil is up there in the super chat, top chat, ultimate chat, and he says he's been watching me for years. You're a great guitar player, extremely inventive with your reviews and all. Thanks, man, and all around great guy. Thank you, appreciate it. Wish I'd met you somewhere along the way. We still have time. I'm not gone yet. And grow your hair back. I'm working on it. It doesn't grow that fast, but actually, hey, think about how short it was like 3 months ago. It's growing out a little bit. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. I hope we do get to meet one of these days somewhere. Who knows, at a NAMM show or something. I don't know. At a gig. The Batigues is up there in the super chat, and he says, for your recent Hendrix clip from YouTube, I think you're saying, were you running a fuzz into the wah? And was it all going into channel 2 of your PT? It sounded great. Yeah, that's right. Channel 3, actually. And I would just turn the gain down for that one song to about 5 or 6, but it's still pretty dirty on the amp. And then I'd have the controls at about 10:30 on the fuzz, maybe 11 o'clock, both the volume and the fuzz. And I ran the fuzz first in line, which is not supposedly what Hendrix did, but I ran it first in line in front of the wah. Never was successful running the wah first, which there's plenty of photos of Hendrix doing. I don't know. How did he do it? I don't understand it. The sweep of the wah sounds screwed when I run a wah into a fuzz face. It doesn't, I don't know how he did it. It's one of the great mysteries of life. But yeah, I just had no success ever trying to get the Hendrix thing, any kind of appreciable good fuzz face wah thing without the fuzz being first. So yeah. And thanks. I'm glad you like that clip. Really fun to play that song, Voodoo Child. I was dreading it, to be honest, because it's hard to play Hendrix and do any kind of, you know, you feel like, and then I just kind of like went, all right, just have fun with this, make it different every night. You know what was awesome was, and I think I talked about this before, but with playing Voodoo Child every night, there was a video clip that would play before I'd play it. And it's Hendrix talking, and somebody says, how's the audience responding to your shows or something was the question. And he'd go, I don't know, man, they're just freaking out. And then he'd go, But sometimes a quiet audience is the best thing. And he said, he goes, it's not about them cheering or talking or clapping or whatever. He says it's all about like trying to get into the collective spirit. He'd say, like get into that moment where all the spirits collect for an hour and a half or something, and it doesn't require talking. And anyway, his little speech just saying like trying to get into the moment where all the spirits collect. I would just close my eyes actually every night before I had to play that song, and try and internalize. He was such a wise guy, for I don't mean a wise guy. I mean he was such a profoundly musically intelligent artist for his age. Because when you consider he died in his late 20s, it's just like he was so connected. At such a relatively young age still, I felt like it was unbelievable, that he could be so tuned in to what made great music and great art, and that's why he still resonates today, with people. That kind of freedom on the instrument and to make music, and just having the his mind in the right place, like when it came to creativity, was fascinating to me. So